So, you want to make a dungeon. Maybe your dungeon already has some sort of quest objective attached to it, but you're not sure what else to put in it, other than the MacGuffin that the player character is looking for, or the big bad that the player character needs to kill. I've got you covered in 5 things your dungeon should have, plus a bonus thing if you're feeling especially ambitious. Now, these ideas apply to Morrowind, Skyrim, and Oblivion. All of my footage comes from Morrowind though, since that's what I currently have installed on my computer. But if you're a Skyrim or an Oblivion modder, this video is for you too. The list here is very inspired by Goblin Punch's dungeon checklist, link in the description below, and the specific dungeon shown in this video is Ashal Mawia with my Daedric Shrine overhaul. The first thing your dungeon needs is something for the player character to take. Treasure is the most obvious thing to put in a dungeon, whether it's gold, rare alchemy ingredients, a fancy piece of armor, or a neat weapon. Loot is very motivating, and I would say that most of the time, that's why players explore dungeons in the first place. However, something to take doesn't have to be generic loot. For example, the sword could be named, implying a history to it. It could be a player home that you take over for yourself. You might be trying to steal something. Or maybe you're after more information for some kind of a quest. Or maybe this is an NPC rescue mission. The point here is that the player character should walk out with something, or someone, that they didn't have before. Now, the next thing that you need to have is something to overcome. There must be some sort of reason why the thing to take isn't, well, taken yet. In most cases, it's guarded by enemies. But maybe you also need to find a way to break into the dungeon in the first place with thief skills or smooth talking. Or maybe even finding the dungeon is the hard part. Next, you also need something to interact with. Interactivity is what makes the dungeon fun and memorable. Well, unless the dungeon is really pretty, in which case the aesthetic is memorable enough. But regardless of how pretty your dungeon is, you should still have something to interact with. This is something that I don't often include myself, but hey, do as I say, not as I do. Besides, this video is titled 5 Things Your Dungeon Should Have, not Must Have. Anyway, dialogue is probably the most straightforward way to do this. There's an NPC in the dungeon who's more interested in talking than in fighting. Maybe some prisoners to free, or an NPC to otherwise rescue. Maybe a rival NPC beat you to the quest objective, and wants to gloat a little bit before teleporting away. Throwing in an activator, like a shrine of some sort, is also an easy thing to do, but it might not fit all dungeons. Cursed items are also something to interact with, and then something to take and something to overcome is already built into it. Puzzles are probably the hardest thing to make and solve, but maybe that's just a skill issue on my part. Next, you need something that the player can miss. This is what gives the dungeon some mystery and a reason to explore it beyond overcome the obstacle, get the thing, and then leave. Maybe there's a note, or a secret door, or a hidden ledge. This is very easy to do in mega dungeons, but you don't need to have a massive dungeon for this to work. As long as you have a ledge, or some plants, or something that can hide a door or some treasure, then you're good to go. Now, verticality. The Elder Scrolls series of games are 3-dimensional. Utilize it. It makes the dungeon more interesting to explore and gives you more spots to hide things in, and can give you something to overcome with levitation or acrobatics. Even small dungeons can have ledges, and any kind of interior can have stairs. Any size of interior can have a ladder leading up, a trapdoor, or leading down. Now the bonus thing. Different ways to solve the problem. As a bonus to your dungeon, you can include different paths to completion. Thiefy dungeons and thiefy quests give great examples of this, since there's usually more than one way to get into the place, and maybe more than one way to get past the guards. But different ways to solve problems is a great way to make your dungeon replayable. You could also have a branching dungeon with different ways to get from point A to point B. Maybe there's an underwater route. Maybe there's 2 different paths, one to the left and one to the right. Doing this is a lot more effort though, which is why it's a bonus thing. I don't think every dungeon needs an alternative way of doing things. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful and has sparked some ideas for you. I have a few other dungeon design videos in the works, and I will see you in the next one.